My name is Jim Dwyer. I feel so privileged to be in this organization with such great people. Boy, oh boy. Good question. SKAL is actually in my DNA. My name is Jim Dwyer. My professional position right now is I'm Director of Sales for Papa's Travel in New Jersey and the President for SKAL USA. But for 33 years, I was an airline manager, a director with KLM, Northwest Airlines, originally with Air Canada. And for about 18 months, I was a sales manager for MSC Italian Cruises. I've been in SKAL for 27 years. I started in SKAL Toledo, Ohio, and I've been a member of the Northern New Jersey, now the New Jersey SKAL Club, since '98. I knew of SKAL when I worked for KLM in New York in the 70s. All of our airline managers at KLM belonged to SKAL, so I was very aware of it. I was transferred to New Jersey, and the managers in New Jersey belonged as well. But back then, in the 70s and 80s, it was very difficult to join because they had a restriction on the number of people from the same company. For example, we had 2 KLM in New York, 2 KLM in New Jersey. I was transferred in 1992 to Detroit, to the KLM office there, and they had 2 members in the Detroit club, so it was very difficult. It was only when I met with a friend who was a member of SKAL Cincinnati and told me that they had a club in Toledo, Ohio, where I was part of my territory, and I joined in Toledo, then in 1993. So SKAL is actually in my DNA, which I didn't find out until my mother passed away. In her effects, we found an old newspaper article of my Uncle Tim. His name was Tim Kane, K-A-N-E, and he was in the travel industry. He was a vice president of a shipping company and had been president of SKAL Miami, which I had never knew. He never mentioned it to me. So I was shocked, amazed, and pleased that I wondered why I had this travel lust inside of me, and I know it's because of my Uncle Tim. Oh, that's easy. Family. I have so many, but I think more recently, in 2017, in September, my wife and I were planning to take a cruise from Rome around the Mediterranean. And prior to going, I contacted the president of SKAL Roma, Antonio Picario, and just wanted to get together with him for a lunch, drinks, lunch, or whatever. And he said, okay, but do you mind if you come to dinner the night before your cruise? I said, no, not at all. And he told me we were going to a restaurant that was owned by a colleague, Eugenio Rossi. So my wife and I went, and they had 40 colleagues at the dinner. It was unbelievable, in our honor. It blew me away. I mean, they couldn't have been nicer. They gave us various gifts. Ultimately, they sent a stretch Mercedes limo to our hotel and picked us up and drove us to the Vatican Museum. On other points during the voyage, we met a colleague, Julie Casuccio, who's been a colleague we met. She lives in Nice, and she drove over to Cannes and met us in Cannes and had lunch. And in Barcelona, we met our good friends Terry Comas Diaz and Paul Vages, who drove and met us in Barcelona and took us all around town to, let's say, non-tourist places, which was ultimately tremendous. That to me was, it probably laid the groundwork for what I call SKAL family. I mean, anywhere you go, and I stress this to all my fellow colleagues, you have a family around the world. If you're going anywhere for business or pleasure, reach out to a family member and they will treat you like family. My answer to that is both. It's not waffling, but obviously it's a challenge because of the loss of jobs, loss of income. But what I found out on our Zooms is that you have this incredible opportunity now to network all over the world if you want. Again, build your network, meet new friends worldwide. And it's as simple as reaching out with an email to a president of a club saying, I'd like to meet your club or whatever. Regionally, I mentioned to you, you guys can meet with Sacramento and San Jose for, it's a simple process. And I would encourage, even when we start meeting in person, hopefully in the next few months, that we continue to use the Zoom format because rather than, having to get tickets, whatever, I'm certainly not discouraging travel because I want to travel as much as possible. But if you want to meet another club, Zoom with them, invite them to one of your meetings. It doesn't have to be all of them. But I think that's a way of building your network and, reaching out to the global SKAL family. I think it's important. What I hope to do is maintain the webinars because I think they're important. But in addition to the webinars, I think we need tutorials. What I did this year, if you're not familiar with it, I went on SKAL.org very early. It was actually last December when it first came out as a beta test. And I saw things in there that were awkward or difficult for the average member, if not for those people that had been on prior. And I took it unto myself in January to really learn it and spent a good part of this year helping members get online, approve new members, transfer members, just update their databases, get information correct. So that's a tutorial that I plan to do probably early in the new year, so that all of the SKAL officers for every club can get up to speed on SKAL.org and SKAL USA immediately, so they can rectify their SKAL rosters so they can send in the correct amount for their dues. A couple of other things that I took some notes. We have, every club has members who come maybe once, twice a year. And many times they sit with a friend and don't get very much involved. These are the same members, unfortunately, who have not been on any of our Zooms. So I would try to make it a priority for all clubs to reach out to these members, recognize what they do, make them feel important, and get them more involved in SKAL. Otherwise, maybe the next year they don't want to rejoin. It's important that we make everybody feel important. Reward and celebrate existing members for their achievements, both in and out of SKAL. A lot of clubs do it. A lot of clubs will reward someone for a 25th anniversary or for something they've done in their career that they've been rewarded for outside of SKAL. That's important. I also want us to get more involved nationally in other organizations, internationally, WTTP, nationally, maybe do more things with ASTA. I want to make everybody know what SKAL is. Nothing annoys me more than being at a travel event and sitting at a table with someone who has been in travel for 15, 20 years, sees my SKAL pin and asks me what SKAL is. It just drives me crazy. So I think it's imperative, not just for me, but for everybody in the organization to really blow the SKAL trumpet, preach the SKAL gospel, and make SKAL more well known. We're already partnered with Tourism Cares. We have such prominent members that have given webinars like Roger Dow, like Chris Thompson. We have a member in the New York club, Arnie Weissman, who has been a publisher of Travel Weekly for years. Anthony Melchiori, who does the travel shows on TV, is in the Long Island Club. These are people, prominent people, who can, on their own or through us, get the name out more. When I become president, I want to have an advisory board and enlist the help of some of these people to push the SKAL name forward. I think it's important for the success of the organization. In light of the fact that we may lose members, maybe this will increase membership just by showing who we have, what we do, our involvement, not only in travel, but in our community. I'm afraid because of loss of jobs, because of loss of income, very possibly leaving the industry, is going to take its toll on our membership next year. But those people who are maintaining, just stay with it. SKAL this year has done such a tremendous job here in the US and worldwide with informing, educating, engaging our members with webinars, with tutorials. I think it's, getting back to that family thing, we're trying to take care of everybody. We want to reach everybody. The networking aspect of it requires reaching out. I mean, again, if you stay within your own boundaries, you have a small networking clique. But now, especially if you can Zoom with someone else, maybe it's a twin club. Maybe you in California can have a Zoom between Sacramento, San Jose, and San Francisco. Maybe the people in Portland can have a Zoom with Seattle and San Francisco. I think it's critically important that you expand your network to succeed, maintain, and build your membership. The clubs that are not doing well are the ones that just stayed by themselves, don't reach out, don't expand, don't get younger. That's a key. I'm not saying don't get younger. If you don't get younger, then you're in trouble. You've got to try to instill passion in your younger members, have them move up in your club, get on your board, get involved. Passion comes not from staying and meeting with your friends once a month. Passion comes from seeing the larger global scope of SKAL. Seeing that you have a friend in Hyderabad, or you have a friend in Nairobi, or you have a friend in Winnipeg that you can rely upon. And the way you do that, yes, you can do it by Zoom, but I encourage people that can do it to go to a national meeting, go to a NASC, go to a World Congress. That's where you have friends that you may have for the rest of your life. So again, the mantra is stay in SKAL, network, and you'll have the support you need during these trying times. Rely on SKAL for support and networking. In January of this year, we had our winter executive committee meeting in New Orleans. It was, the dates don't matter, but New Orleans is one of my favorite destinations in the United States. It just has that old world charm and incredibly good food. And the New Orleans Club treated us tremendously. We had a couple of great dinners. We had a couple of great events with the New Orleans Club. And, it was a matter of getting together with the executive committee and others that came down to enjoy the camaraderie and, as they say in SKAL, the amical. That was my last trip. Sadly, it was January. God willing, if we get our vaccinations and things get better, I have so many plans. I'm ready to get on a flight tomorrow if I could. One of the most beautiful is Lugano in Switzerland. My wife and I were there probably, I'm saying the late 80s, maybe 88, 89. And it took my breath away as far as natural beauty. The pristine lake with the villas surrounding the lake, with the rolling hills behind them, and then the snow-capped mountains behind that. It was just absolutely spectacularly beautiful naturally. Lugano stood out to me. It really did. It reminded me of very much of Lake Tahoe. Number one, I'm Irish, and I have to put on about 3 hours worth of sunblock to go on any beach. I usually sunburn in about 5 minutes, but my favorite beaches, I know in Hawaii, Hanauma Bay is one of my favorite beaches. And there's some actually beaches that you don't even think about. There are some beaches in the western part of Ireland that are incredibly beautiful, but you can only go there for about 2 or 3 months out of the year. Any number of beaches on the Riviera, and even southern Portugal and the Algarve, whatever. So yeah, but I think I go back to Hanauma Bay in Hawaii. I think that's probably my favorite, and I got a bad sunburn there, but that's okay. I would say about mid 60s, 65, 66, somewhere in there. Yeah, when I was a kid, my parents didn't travel much. All the travel was more or less contained to New Jersey, New York. The best fun I had traveling during our summer vacations was visiting our cousins, my father's sister's kids in Rockland County, New York, just over the New York border. We look forward to that every year. But other than that, if you know New Jersey, we have beaches, we have mountains, in quotes, in the upper, northwest part of the state. So you can ski, you can go to the beach. So more often than not, we would go to the beach during the summer, and get blistered. And my mother would have to put Noxzema on it to cure the blisters. But yeah, we never traveled internationally. The first time I ever traveled internationally, I was over 20, and I took a trip by myself to Ireland. My parents had, my father is from Ireland. My mother is first generation. Her parents were born there. This was great. I've met a few, but I think the most interesting was the actor Paul Newman. We were on a short flight. He's originally from Cleveland, and that was part of my sales territory. And lo and behold, on a hour flight, or actually less than an hour flight between Cleveland and Newark, Paul Newman was on the flight with me, and he was sitting in the seat in front of me. And so I got to talk to him for a few minutes, and he was just a great down-to-earth guy. It was in the later end of his career. I think he had just made the movie Verdict, but he was charming and just again, down-to-earth, nice guy. And as it's turned out, he's a very charitable man, has been a very charitable guy. My wife and I travel together. That's the norm, unless I'm going for business. But thank you for that lead-in. Back in 2003, our club in then Northern New Jersey were having a summer party at the then President Bonnie Kessler's house. And I just mentioned at the time I was working for Northwest KLM, and I said, why don't we ever travel as a group? And everybody looked at each other, I don't know. So I said, why don't we do it? So starting the following year, we started to travel as a group. So since 2004, SKAL Northern New Jersey / New Jersey has taken 15 trips together, and not only with New Jersey people. We had SKAL New York, SKAL Philadelphia, Atlanta, Memphis, Puerto Rico. I'm trying to think, maybe a few others, who have been to a total of 31 clubs on 15 trips. And we've created such a bond, and some other clubs know about it and they want to go. And this year, unfortunately, we had planned, this is a great story too, we had planned to go to Iceland. They don't have a club there, they did. And until last year, they had 2 active individual members. But last year on the SKAL cruise, I met former SKAL International President Jan Sunde from Bergen, Norway, and we were sitting at the airport on our return, and we had an hour and a half, and I was telling him about the trip. And I said, Jan, how cool would it be if a bunch of your members from Bergen and a bunch of our members from New Jersey met in Reykjavik, and you have contacts there, we have contacts there, and tried to reform the Iceland club. He loved the idea. So that was our plan for this year. We were going to fly to Iceland, and then our group was going to continue on to Bergen before flying home. And if all goes well, this year we'll try to do it again. I will say unqualified KLM. I mean, I worked there for 33 years. The quality has never lessened. It's always maintained its standards. It is currently the world's oldest airline. It started in 1919. There were a couple that started before them, but they are no longer in existence. So KLM, I've got the loyalty, but I mean, their standards are sky high. They've always been ranked up there with Singapore and Cathay Pacific for quality, and even the airport is phenomenal. I've been to a lot of great hotels. One of my favorite hotels is in Rome, the Excelsior. I always like the Excelsior Hotel because of the where it's located, the proximity, the places you can walk to. It's one of my favorites. I've been there, I think, on 3 different occasions and loved every time I've been there. Yeah, meat. Oh my God. I would prefer wine. Beef cordon bleu.